Today we're going to repair a PS5 controller by replacing the charging port. Use a pry tool to remove the bottom brackets on both sides of the controller. Lift the bracket near the headphone jack, and then you can remove the bracket completely. Next, insert a pry tool between the R1 and R2 buttons and lift R1 upward to remove it. Do the same for the L1 and L2 buttons. Now, we can remove the two screws at the bottom of the controller. Next, we'll remove the two screws at the top of the controller above the R1 and L1 buttons. There are two clips near the headphone jack. Use a pry tool to push them down, and then with a little prying here and there, the top shell can be removed. As you can see, everything inside is tightly compact. We'll disconnect the ribbon cables for the headphone jack and microphone, and with a firm upward tug, they'll both slide out. Next, we'll remove the battery by gently pulling up on the connector. There's a single screw holding down the battery bracket that we'll need to remove. Next, we'll disconnect the motor ribbon cables on both sides of the controller. And then we'll disconnect the RF communication ribbon cable underneath. Now we can flip the motherboard over, and we need to keep in mind that there are still soldered cables attaching the board to the rest of the controller. If you desire at this time to label and desolder the wires, you can, or you can attempt to perform the port replacement with them still attached. For the soldering, we're going to apply low temperature solder paste, a 138 Celsius solder paste, to the charging port solder joints. This helps mix with the factory solder, bringing down the temperature that the port needs to get to in order to be removed easily. Using a hot air rubric station set at 380 Celsius, and also given the thermal mass of the logic board combined with the low melt, the port should come off quickly. Use some solder wick to remove all of the solder from both the pads and the through holes. We can flip over the board to the back side, and using a hot air station at 300 Celsius and some wick, we can remove the solder from the through holes. Then we'll flip it back over to the front for some soldering. We're going to take our new charge port and line it with the solder pads and press it down to ensure that the pins are making contact with the pads. Next, we'll solder the 4 large anchor holes to hold the port in place. Now we can apply some flux to all of the pins and carefully solder each one of them to the pads. We want to make sure that there is no bridging between the pads as we solder them together, but we need to ensure that there is ample solder making connection between the pin and the pad. We'll flip over the board again and add additional solder to the anchor pins. And it's highly recommended that you use a high temperature solder for this section of the repair to give the port its best chance at living up to the strain that it's going to experience throughout the remainder of its life. We'll clean the surrounding area, and once that's done, we'll simply need to reverse everything we've done and put it back together for testing. We'll plug in a charging cable and a current spike around 500 milliamps is normal, and the charging LEDs should light up on the controller. And if we monitor the charging power, it will reach an output of 2.6 watts. This means the repair was successful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If there's something you'd like to see in a future video, let me know as well. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.